makes you feel afraid? Makes you feel afraid. Really illegible. I'm sorry about that. So what kind of fear do you express by what you do? In other words, what do you insist on in your life which causes others to get annoyed at your insistence? It's in the things you insist on that will tell you what you are afraid of and what causes fear to erupt in you. Okay, do you break out in hives at the mere idea of flying? Or do you make all of the doors get checked before going to bed? My husband won't leave the driveway until we've all strapped ourselves in. I mean, he just sits there in the driveway till I've put on my seatbelt, and I don't like it, because I like to feel the movement of the truck, and oh yes, I need that now. Otherwise, I feel claustrophobic, and I'm just doing what my husband tells me to do, and that's just not something I like to do. You're not the boss of me. So whatever it is that you insist upon and it annoys other people, this is a good indication of what makes you afraid, what makes you feel fear. There are fears that are phobias and fears that just make you nervous. Knowing the difference between these two feelings of fear will give you an indication of what is true and what is not true about you. If you're just a little nervous, then the fear is not coming from the act itself, but from the way the act makes you feel. Therefore, it is a secondary fear. So if it makes you nervous to fly, it's probably because you have a fear of giving up control. So that's the secondary fear. But if you are phobic about flying, then there's a very obvious thing that needs to, well, it's not obvious, but obviously something needs to be identified. And I want to give an example of this. I did a reading for a woman who God asked her to ask a question about this nagging feeling that's always in the back of her mind, constantly nagging her. And she said, oh, yes, why am I always afraid of failure? Why am I so afraid of failure? And God said, well, you are afraid indeed, but it is not failure you are afraid of. What you are afraid of is confrontation, because in a previous life, you were the judge, jury, and executioner. And she gasped over the phone. And after the reading, she says, I got to tell you, I have always had this phobic feeling of prisons. And whenever they killed anybody, in Florida, I guess they kill people a lot. She said, whenever they kill anybody, I would have nightmares for days afterwards. So here's a phobic feeling about something that seems somewhat benign, but this woman would have such intense feelings about it, which were an indication of something that happened in a previous life. So, so if any of you have any phobias, pay attention.
The recently released book, What to Do When You're Dead, a former atheist interviews the source of infinite being, is a fascinating dialogue between the creator of the universe and the author, Sondra Sneed, who has been in her life to hell and back. Imagine finding out that you may hold the secret to man's survival and that your work is already recorded in the book of life. Well, it's happened to Sondra Sneed, and you get a front row seat to the life of a reluctant messenger bringing forth a message that could save humankind if human beings are willing to listen. Join Sondra Sneed as she takes you on a journey of what to do when you're dead at sondrasneed.com. That's SONDRASNEED.com.